Hello, hello, welcome to the replay. Today we're talking about how to turn your vague ideas for your book into a first draft. So welcome everyone. As you're joining, let me know your name and where you're tuning in from. It's a holiday in the States, and that's where I am, and so it's Labor Day. I'm hanging out at my in-laws' lake house. We're actually just about to pack up and leave, which is always very sad. But that's okay. We enjoy the moments when we have them, and then we pack when we need to. Hey, Jean. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for the hearts, guys. Who else is in here? I think I saw Miguel pop in, and some other people. We've got Melanie's in the room. Mark, Miguel. Cool. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Yes. So what are y'all writing? Hey, Miguel. Jenna's in. What are y'all writing? Is anyone else writing a book? I'm a lot of my advice is very general to, any type of writing, especially nonfiction writing. But I work a lot with authors who write books, but what do you guys write? Blogs, novels, nonfiction books? Let me know. And that way I can tailor my advice to you, because that's really what this is all about. So quick intro. Thanks for the hearts, guys. I feel like that's a show of faith that something valuable is coming out of this scope. Jenna is not writing yet. It's a goal. Blog now, book soon. That's a good way to do it. Jean, right now working on my blog. That's right. Good. Yes, just starting to write is like half the battle. Like starting to get your ideas and put them out in public. It's really nerve-wracking, but once you get the hang of it, it really makes way for lots of writing progress. So, who am I? I'm Morgan Gist McDonald. Oh, 7 Slight Edges, working on a customer service book. What's your name? And Miguel's also blogging. Okay, good guys. This works for blogging too. So what we're talking about this week is really a lot of my core advice that I work with authors on for their books. But many of the principles are just as easy. Oh, Mark. Right, okay. Yeah, Periscope is so weird that when I look at who's in the room, I can see your names, but then when you comment, it's just your handle. I don't understand Periscope super well yet. We're getting there. I guess no one understands Periscope very well yet. It's so new, but it's exciting. So yes, I am Morgan Gist McDonald. I'm a writing coach and editor and author, and I run my business and blog out of paperravenbooks.com. And I work with people like you who want to write but don't always know where to start. And so I'm a very step-by-step logical kind of gal. I like to have tools and tricks and plans to get me from vague idea to actually starting to produce word count on a regular basis. And that's what I work with authors on, is how do we create, schedules and timelines and tools and strategies that work for you. So as we're building up this Periscope community of writers, I'd love to get to know you and what you struggle with and what's most helpful for you. So that way when I do my scopes, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Jean asked this question in my last scope. Let me answer it. So if you have questions, feel free, throw them in the chat, and I will either answer them on the spot or at the end, or I'll make a whole Periscope just for your question. So let me know. Alright guys, let's dive in. So today, we were talking about how to turn your vague idea for a book, works for a blog too, into a first draft. So, there's let me set up with the problem. Thanks for the hearts, guys. Yes, and if you're new to Periscope, if something that I say resonates with you and you tap the screen for hearts. And if you like to listen to people talk about writing, hit Perry Buddy down there, change that plus into a check mark, and then you'll follow me, and it'll let you know when I'm on and scoping about writing. So, you have great ideas. I know you have great ideas because your message is not yet out in the world the way that it should be. You have ideas for how to help people solve their problems, inspire their lives, but you just need to get those words out. And if you're like most people, you probably oscillate between two kind of extremes. Like some days, you feel like, I don't have enough to write a book. I just don't have enough material. I just don't know that I could ever say enough to make it worthwhile to write a book. I feel that some days. And then other days, you're just on fire. You sit down and you turn out 1,500 words, and you're like, I could write dozens of books. And so within the span of a week, you might feel, yes, that's me, yep. So in the span of a week, you might go from feeling super pessimistic, I'll never have enough to write a book, to super awesome optimistic, I have dozens of books in me. Jenna's feeling the same way. And we tend to have those quick oscillations between the feelings because We're trying to write without a plan. So, first draft starts with a plan. What I recommend is that there are 2 phases to this. This is sort of like the pre-plan. Before you start writing your first draft, you need kind of a pre-planning week to really supercharge the actual writing process. So there's 2 phases to this pre-plan. Phase number 1 is free writing. If you caught any of my earlier scopes, you know that I love free writing. This is a method of getting words out of your brain really quickly and really easily, and it's kind of fun. You set a timer for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and you type or write as fast as you physically can. It's really uncomfortable at first, but once you get in the flow, yes, Jean says love free writing. So that's foundational for this pre-planning phase. And if you go to paperravenbooks.com/periscope, you'll see some of my previous scopes where I talk more in depth about this. But free writing is really essential to this phase. Miguel, I have ghost story ideas, but since I'm focused on a crime thriller and you can't figure it can wait. Okay, we are going to talk about that too. How do you choose between ideas? So we're getting there, Miguel. You're in line with where I'm going. Okay, so in this phase 1 with the free writing, I recommend planning for 5 days in a row if you can, where kind of the same time of day you kind of get up, and like I do early morning, maybe you're a late night person, it doesn't really matter, but just try to find a flow so that you're setting aside this. I would recommend 25 minutes. 25 minutes to just free write, let it flow, sit down, kind of put your book possibilities in your mind, and just write it out. Just let it come out. You're not organizing this. This is not going to be seen anywhere. You're trying to get clarity around your ideas. And what if you have more than one book topic? Everyone has this problem. What I recommend you do is you pick the top 3 book ideas that you have, and you take them one topic at a time. And you have basically a free-flowing conversation with yourself that you type out. So you ask yourself questions, and then you answer them. And then you ask yourself questions, and then you answer them. So I'm going to give you some specific questions that you can ask yourself, and these will be available, because I always take scope notes for you guys. I write out all my notes in advance, and I put them on paperravenbooks.com/periscope. So these are all written out for you. But what I recommend is you have those 3 topics that are your top, the ones that you are most frequently considering writing about. And you pick one, and for this first topic you say to yourself, why is this topic important to me? Like from a very deep personal level, like why do I care about this? Second, why do I feel like the world needs to hear this now? What need is there in people that you've met or talked to that you feel like some people need to hear this message? Why? Tell yourself why in really explicit ways. Why does the world need this message? And then third, how do I feel? Like deeply energetic, emotionally about this topic. Am I drawn toward it, or do I feel like something is like pushing me toward it, like I have to write about this? And sort of just write your way through the emotions you feel about that topic. So those are the questions. And then after you write your answers and have this little conversation with yourself, just kind of pause and check in and say, okay, how do I feel about this? Do I feel open and expansive and like I have an adrenaline rush and I'm super excited? If that's how you feel, that is a really good sign you should take that book topic and just run with it. If on the other hand you feel really constricted and anxious and like, I don't really know how I'm going to pull this off, I'm not sure I could write a book about this, that's like a major warning sign. Like maybe you can write that book later, but maybe you don't need to worry about it right now. So take your top book ideas, works for blogs too, your top writing ideas, and ask yourself, why is this topic important to me? Why do I feel like the world needs to hear about this now? And how do I feel energetically when I think about it? And honestly, there are some times when authors will come to me and they're like, oh thanks Jean, they're like, I'm torn between these 2 book ideas because one is really practical, and I think there's a need in the market, I think I could make money off of it, I think, I could sell it to a publisher or whatever. But I also have this other book idea that I really love and is more my passion, I'm just not sure who would buy it. And you know what I always recommend? You gotta go with the passion, because your career is not made on one book. Your career begins with one book, and that is your platform. That's how you begin to build who you are and who you serve. And so your book should always attract the people that you want to serve. What if the market is saturated, but you're excited about it? Oh, good question, Jenna. Okay, so I think that having a lot of books for sale in your topic is actually a good thing. It's a good indication that there are a lot of readers of that topic. Because when you think about it, if you're a reader, let's say you're a reader and you're super into paleo recipes. I don't know. There's a ton of paleo books. And you're brand new and you're like, I love paleo. You don't buy one paleo book. You buy 12 paleo books, right? I mean, and that's just one reader. When you're really into a topic, and if you're into a topic and excited about a topic for 5, 6, 7 years, one reader can consume dozens and dozens of books on one topic. And it's a benefit to the market if there are always new books coming out. And now that we have things like Amazon with the search engine, the newest ones get a bit of a priority because they get released as like hot and new and trending, right? And so there are some ways in which actually having a lot of books in one topic can be a good indication that there's a huge demand for that topic. Yep, you're welcome, Jenna. So it's really intimidating as the author to look around and say, oh, but everyone's already written about this. But I would bet once you actually start writing and you begin to flesh out this first draft, you'll see how different your book is from what's already on the market. And I found the same way. I mean, the most recent book that I wrote was How to Write a Book. And I went on Amazon and was doing searches, and I kept finding books about how to write a book, and I would get so nervous. But then I would download that book and read it, and I was like, they're not talking at all the same way that I'm talking. You know, I'm creating this step-by-step guide, and they're talking about, you know, the muse and inspiration. Like, we're talking totally different languages. And so if you feel like the market's saturated, maybe you should do just a little bit more in-depth research and actually go and buy those books and see what they read. They probably are not saying what you think they're saying. So that's just an option. So don't let a saturated market like intimidate you. There's lots of room, lots and lots of room. Okay, so you have these 5 days of free writing, and that really helps to clarify your thoughts around the topic. You won't necessarily use the free writing. It's just truly an exercise in getting the words out of your brain and onto paper so that you can create more clarity. Then it's time for phase 2. Phase 2 is creating a rough organization. So this is not an outline. This is not a mind map. And it's not even just a list. It's kind of something similar to a list, but it's much more flexible. I really like to remain as flexible as possible in this stage. The reason I don't like an outline is because it's very rigid. We all have flashbacks to like freshman English. We had to write the Roman numerals and the letter A, and it all had to be formatted correctly. And like the tension around outlines is just too much for most of us, especially who've been through like a Western Americanized like education system. Like you write Roman numeral 1 and you start to get like panic attacks from freshman English. So I don't recommend outlines. I think they're too rigid. Mind maps, a lot of people do mind maps, and I don't think they're bad, but I think they get really out of control really fast, because a mind map is like you start with one bubble in the middle, and then, hey, can I have 2 more minutes? Sorry, my husband and I are trading off childcare duty, so we're I'm getting a few more minute extension, and then I gotta go take care of the kiddos. But a mind map starts with a concept in the center, and then you branch out, like draw lines to another concept, and there'll be more lines to other concepts. And so you get this huge, like, sprawling visual. For me, that's crazy intimidating. I get like, maybe it's because I'm like mildly OCD, but I'm like, oh no, the lines aren't straight, and oh, this one has like way more little bubbles than this side, and it's all lopsided. I'm like, I can't deal with it. So what I do instead, and I've had a lot of authors who have preferred this method as well, is the rough organization. So I'm going to describe it, and then I'm actually going to show you an example. It's the rough organization of my most recent book, so you can see kind of what it looks like. But basically, you sit down and you try to give yourself like 30 or 40 minutes, like a longer chunk, so that you can sit and process and think. But you try to write out a sentence or a phrase for every point that you want to make in the book. So this works really well for nonfiction books because we're usually like teaching some expertise. Thank you guys for the heart. You guys are just like tapping. You just got like a good flow going. I really appreciate it. It's helping me like stay motivated. So thank you guys. I just wanted to say that's awesome. I really appreciate it. But you for every point that you want to make in the book, you just write out either like a fragmented sentence or long phrase or something to describe that point. You just list them one by one by one by one. And don't worry about the order, just get it out there. Then take a break. You can come back the next day, whatever. Come back and start to rearrange them and put them under chapter headings. So then you'll start to just like copy paste this line, put it under this chapter, here's another chapter, copy paste, put it here, and so then you start to just rearrange the list so that it begins to flow and make sense like that. So let me flip you guys around and I'll show you the rough organization that I created for my most recent book. Okay, so when this started, see, I even had a title up here. Rough Organization for How to Write a Book, working title. Okay, so these were all of these that were lowercase here were just points that I was writing out. So I wanted to write about myths that writers buy into. The idea that you have to be someone special to be a successful writer. You have to have a lot of free time. You have to write every day. So I had all these points. Why you would want to write a book. There are a lot of good reasons to write a book. You feel a mysterious call or curiosity. You have some knowledge, advice, or experience. You have a story. And so when I first wrote this rough organization, I'm going to show you how long this gets. Every single one of these. And you can see I got kind of crazy here. Like this was 1 point, you know, small chunks. I do not recommend devoting an entire day or weekend or week just to writing. So these were like long points, but I didn't stop myself. I wanted to explain the point that I was going to make, and it kind of goes and goes and goes, right? And all this was one list, and then I went back to the beginning. I was like, okay, how do these make sense together? And in the big caps here is what ended up being chapters. So Myths and Truths of Becoming a Successful Author was one chapter. Why Write a Book? It may have ended up being put into another chapter, but it started in this rough organization as its own chapter. How to Prevent Self-Sabotage When Writing was its own chapter. Good Writing Habits was its own chapter. Okay, so you sort of see how I just was able to take some of these. Some of these are very short, and some of these are multiple lines long. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as they are somewhat grouped, because we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but what we're going to do in our first draft is we're going to take this rough organization, start from the beginning, and you just write. You write through every point, one after another after another. And that way, if you feel like you have to skip part of the rough organization, you know where it is and you can remember pretty easily what you wanted to say. And then you can skip it and come back to it later. But this makes it really easy. You don't have to sit and think about what you want to write because you've already planned that out. Okay, so I'll also give a link to that in case you want to look more in depth at it. But it's just a really long, unstructured list of the points that you want to make. That's it. It's super simple, but it's flexible enough that you can change it later, and it's structured enough that it's like a map, so that you can start writing and you won't lose track of where you are. So that's it, guys. That's really and truly enough to keep you on target. Because linear brain dump, I love that, Jean. That is a perfect description. Yes, linear brain dump. That's perfect. And that's really all you need to keep. Oh, Tracy just joined the room. Hi, Tracy. To keep organized. What I most want for you is that when you sit down to write a first draft, if your brain is just full of vague ideas, hi, Tracy, I don't want you to freeze. You know, and this is true whether you're writing blog posts or whether you're writing a full-length book. If you sit down to a blank document and you're like, okay, and now I'm writing a first draft, it's like too much pressure. It's too much pressure. You're gonna freeze. We all do it. It's a normal reaction to a blank page with too many expectations. So back off a little bit and say, all right, we're just gonna plan. We're gonna do 5 days of free writing. We're gonna figure out our topic. We're gonna gain some clarity around the topic, and then we're gonna do a linear brain dump. Jean, I'm totally gonna take that. I'll attribute it to you, but that was perfect description. And create this rough organization. That's just the list. And then tomorrow we'll talk about how to write through the rough organization, creating a first draft, and we're going to talk about 5 best practices for writing your first draft. So hopefully we can get you guys into writing. Oh, thanks, Jean. Alrighty, guys, that's it. I'm on kiddo duty now. My husband and I are swapping out. But, and then we're packing up and we're leaving the lake house, which is very sad. I'm going to be on the road a little bit this week, but I will take you with me. I'll be back in my office tomorrow and then off to California for a few days, so we're going to have some fun.